Basically, what New York State did, and we had countless healthcare workers contact us who were fired. They said for healthcare workers, you don't need to have a religious exemption. You don't get the COVID vaccine, you're fired. Done. Medical exemption will provide you. So meaning they'll allow a secular exemption, though they pretty much won't give you a medical exemption either. But we won't allow you to have an exemption for religious reasons. Now that is directly conflicts with Title VII federal law, period. End of story. It's clear as day to anybody who's actually honest or caring in any way about religious freedom. The New York Appellate Court, the Second Circuit, which is the federal court that sits on top of New York, it ruled that New York State was legal and proper in what they did. It was okay for them to not afford a religious exemption, even though they had a medical exemption. The healthcare workers who were fired en masse under this ridiculous law and approach by New York State appealed to the Supreme Court. Okay. Now, the Trump administration could have just stayed out of it. Mm-hmm. The U.S. Supreme Court did ask them if they would like to weigh in, and they could have not done so. They could have declined to do anything. Instead, the Department of Justice specifically chose to file a brief into that U.S. Supreme Court case and say, you know what? You should decline Supreme Court to take this case, which would have the effect of leaving the Second Circuit decision as good law, leaving as good law on the books that you can have a medical exemption, but no religious exemption. It is totally fine to just fire all those healthcare workers that refuse the COVID-19 vaccine. That is the actual effect of what the Department of Justice did. They wrote an 18-page amici brief in which it's just, gobbledygook. And I know a lot of people are tweeting and posting about it because they read it and they're like, well, isn't the Department of Justice actually saying you should have a religious exemption? Again, judge people by their actions, not their words. That brief as it stands, the purpose is to let the Second Circuit law stand as good law. The Department of Justice should have come in and they should have very simply said, no, you cannot have a medical exemption without a religious exemption. And in the workplace context, you can't have no religious exemption because that violates Title VII. That had taken one page. I could have written that for them in one paragraph. They should have done that. The failure to do that was a betrayal, as I wrote, by the Trump administration with regards to religious liberty. And it is doing them no favors. You mentioned the midterms, Jeffrey. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, you said it's going to have an impact. Oh, it is. It's going to have an impact. And I think the impact it's going to have, and it's part of why I put this tweet out, I'm really hoping the White House takes notice, and I'm hoping they reform their ways very quickly, because if they don't, they are going to lose millions and millions of votes. The millions of folks out there who are impacted by vaccines, be their injury, by medical liberty and so forth, they're seeing what the Trump administration is doing on that front, and they're not happy. They saw this. They understand what the Trump administration just did with the Supreme Court intervention is not good. Yep. They're seeing what they're doing, for example, and going and giving Bayer, arguing they should get immunity, not just by the way, for glyphosate, but it would have been for all herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides, basically would have given them immunity. People they need to turn course immediately on these issues, or they're going to lose incredible amount of votes.
We've seen the Department of Justice under the Trump administration with a lot of topics. Two of them you just mentioned. It's almost schizophrenic because you see them moving, and we understand the Department of Justice is insular. It's insulated somewhat, we like to think, from politics. That's how it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a legal grounds, but I want to show an article from 2025. It's not an article, it's actually a press release from the actual Department of Justice. Justice Department addresses religious discrimination in lawsuit for former teacher denied exemption from vaccine mandate. So it goes on to say this, and we're talking about the same Justice Department. So when I read this, it says, when employees' religious principles conflict with work rules, they should not be forced to choose between practicing their religion and keeping their jobs if a reasonable accommodation can be made. That's the Assistant Attorney General Dillon of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. And if you just lick your finger and put it to the wind as well, you're seeing almost every week, definitely every month, headlines like this. You're seeing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, lost in court cases. Here's one just recently Northwestern Medicine to pay $325,000 for equal opportunity for religious exemption for people that got fired that didn't accommodate for them. So it seems like this brief from the DOJ is out of left field. Obviously, we can speculate here of what the heck's going on, but it's almost like they're talking out of two sides of their mouth.
There's a difference between what you say and what you do. That was a press release you read from. So that's what they say, and they're telling the public, but judge them based on what they do. And they need to start doing things, coming in on the side of religious freedom in practice as well in these cases is critically important. And it is ridiculous. I mean, our firm, which represents folks fired for COVID-19 vaccines, has gotten multi-million-dollar settlements on behalf of groups of individuals who were fired for COVID-19 vaccine because the employer refused a religious exemption. Our private firm can do it. The DOJ should be going full throttle after these bad actors, not taking the side of New York State effectively at the highest level in this country, at the U.S. Supreme Court. That is political. Everybody knows what happens in the Supreme Court has serious ramifications nationally. And what the DOJ just signaled to the country, I believe, is it's okay for you to just basically not have a religious exemption. You could fire people who are for refusing to engage in conduct that violates your religious beliefs. It's just
devastating.
Frankly, it's just shocking to me.
Yeah, absolutely devastating.